Hi, my name's Lindsay, and I'm a pediatric sleep coach with Good Morning Sunshine Sleep Services. Thanks for tuning in today. Today, I'm going to talk about short naps and what you can do to improve them. So, you wouldn't believe how often I hear from parents that my child will only take a good nap if I am holding him. And if I put him in the crib, I'm lucky to get 30 minutes out of him max. Well, you're not alone in the struggle. Like I said, I hear it quite often. I recently just worked with a mom of an 8-month old, and she joked before we started working on a plan together that she was pretty sure her little gal was allergic to napping. Though this is funny, it is very wearing on everyone. So we worked on a few things to change during the day and night, and it really shifted the way that her baby was sleeping for naps in just a couple of weeks. So I'm going to share those things with you today too, so you can start shifting the way that your child naps. But before we talk about those, let's talk about what qualifies a good nap. This really does vary on the age of the child, but generally speaking, somewhere from 1 to 2 hours is a great nap. There is times when a 30-40 minute nap is appropriate, and that would be when the child's taking more than one nap and it's the very last nap of the day. And they wouldn't be able to make it to bedtime without it. It's like a cat nap that holds them over. They still need to build enough sleep pressure to be able to sleep through the night, but this is what's going to get them to cut the edge off. It's also okay for when children are dropping naps. So when they're going from 4 to 3 naps or 3 to 2 and so on. Again, it's really just to hold them over into bedtime so they don't become overtired. So the first thing that I'll have you check on is a nap time routine. You need to make sure that you're establishing a consistent one that you're doing every single time they go down for the nap. This should be about 5 to 10 minutes long. It's a transition for the baby from play to sleep. Nothing elaborate. Diaper, reading a couple of books, sing a couple of songs, change into some comfy clothes, and in the crib baby goes. You're going to do this in the room where baby sleeps. You're setting these expectations up around sleep, and so being in the room is part of that repetitiveness that is a cueing system for baby that lets them know that when we're here doing these steps, sleep is to come next. So during the day, melatonin, which helps us fall asleep at night, is not on our side. We don't have that release of melatonin during the day. So that makes it a little more challenging for kids to nap. And if we let children have their say, they probably wouldn't want to nap at all. But we know that they need to. So having this little routine, setting those expectations around sleep is really going to let them transition into sleep and calm and relax and prepare for that easier. If you have a feeding that's part of the routine, it's time to remove that. Even if your child's very young, like a month old, it needs to be moved where you do it. It's not saying to let your child go hungry. I'm just saying rearrange the order of your day. So I highly suggest feeding your baby upon waking as opposed to feeding your baby before going to sleep. There's a lot of research out there showing the effectiveness in the following that eat, play, sleep pattern to the day. Well, why is that? Well, nursing or bottle feeding a baby to sleep or close to sleep, like getting them drowsy and really tired where they're starting to nod or close their eyes, is an easy way to settle them, but it causes the sleep eat association. Then, when baby comes to the surface of sleep when changing sleep cycles, there's a full wake up because baby gets stuck and needs help falling back to sleep with that same feeding. It's what soothed her to sleep in the first place. So she has really learned to rely on you and not develop her own skills on her own to fall asleep. So arrange your day to have feedings follow the sleep instead of before. Next, you want to check the environment of the room. You want to make sure that it is optimal for sleep. So if baby has on tights, jeans, an itchy sweater, or something that's not going to be comfortable to sleep in, change them. There's no rule that says you can't put a child in pajamas during the day to take a nap. You don't have to do pajamas. You could have, designated sweats or shorts that the baby sleeps in. Using a sleep sack is just fine as well. You want them to be comfortable and getting in a position that they can sleep. You also want to make sure that the room is as dark as possible. Darkness has such a drastic effect on all of our sleep. Blackout curtains, blinds, blankets, trash bags, whatever it is you need to do and hang to block out the light will work. Doesn't have to be pretty to be effective. Again, melatonin's not working on our side during the day, so we really need to help the child feel the sleep coming on with dark. Also, use a white noise machine to muffle the environmental noises during the day. Things like a dog barking and cars honking or banging on pots or whatnot could easily wake your child up. So, muffling that noise with the white noise will really go a long way. The third thing to consider is how you respond to your baby when they wake from the nap. Try to wait at least 10 minutes to see if baby can get himself back to sleep. This has to do with sleep cycles. I talked briefly about that before, but now I'm going to go into more detail so you understand the importance of it and why sleep is the way it is. So, we all go through sleep cycles. Stage one, very light. It's actually the process of falling asleep. Stage two is when you're actually considered asleep, but it's still very light and you can be woken easily. If you think back to school and you were starting to drift off and you actually would admit to being asleep, that's probably stage two. Stage three and four are deep states of sleep. At this point, a fire truck could go by with screaming sirens, and chances are your kiddo won't even flinch because they are so deep in their sleep at that point. There's also REM sleep, which is a very active stage, and it's super important for memory and learning new information from the day. So adult sleep cycles are much longer than children, somewhere from 90 to 120 minutes. And what happens is when you transition from one cycle to the next throughout the night, you enter those light stages of sleep where you could be easily awoken. In fact, you actually come to the surface level of briefly waking, where you wouldn't have much of a memory of it at all in the morning before you enter into the next cycle. At this point, very small sounds like the AC kicking on or a crack of light from the window can cause a wake up. So, can you guess how long a baby's sleep cycle is? On average, 30 to 45 minutes, hence the 30-minute nap trouble. What they're doing is they're getting to end one sleep cycle and then they're waking up and not able to get into that next one. So, as I talked about before with that feeding, there's things that sometimes parents do that actually put the child to sleep and the child's not doing it on their own, like being fed, rocked, bounced, snuggle, whatever it is. And so then when your child comes to the surface level of waking, it becomes a full on wake up. And that's because they're aware of what wasn't there before. And they want to go back to sleep and they're looking for your help at that point. So you have to remove these props from the beginning and lay baby in bed awake. It's the only way to provide an opportunity for your child to learn these skills to fall asleep independently. Then, as they transition through these cycles, they'll still come to the surface, but they'll have those skills of self soothing and move into the next cycle without your help. This does take time to learn, so you have to be patient in this process. Most of the time, they learn how to do this at night first because of the circadian rhythm, the melatonin, and the darkness are all on our sides. Naps take a little longer to follow suit. But for them to do this with naps, you do need to make sure that they have the opportunity when they wake up around that 30-40 minute nap mark, because chances are they're at the end of one sleep cycle. So wait at least 10 minutes, maybe even 20 minutes, maybe even 30 minutes. It really just depends what's going on and for how long and how many days you've been at it with this. Something about the 10-minute marks just seems to be pretty magical for kids to fall back asleep. I hear so often from the clients that I'm working with when I suggest this 10-minute mark is that baby was crying really intensely and then at 9.5 minutes, silence and baby's asleep and they enter the next cycle. I know listening to a crying baby is really, really tough. But think of it this way, I'd much rather let my son cry for the 10 minutes and go back to sleep than rather call it quits, get him up, and now have a cranky kiddo who is not well rested and not getting the benefits of all that good sleep. So, the next thing to consider is something called sleep pressure. Sleep pressure is the buildup and the need for sleep after being awake for so long. You will want your child to be awake for about the same amount of time between each sleep. So, if they're taking multiple naps, and between the naps need to be about the same from when they wake up to the first nap and from that nap until bedtime. These are the wake windows. And you really need them to be age appropriate to make sure that enough sleep pressure has built up to take a good nap. If there's not enough sleep pressure, they're likely to fall asleep, but not have a need for a second cycle. And so at the end of that 30 minutes, they're like, I'm good, I'm ready to go. So you do want to make sure that you're pushing them enough that they're going to build up this pressure. On the other hand, this is very tricky. You don't want to push them so long where they're going to hit overtiredness. That causes them to have a very difficult time falling asleep and staying asleep. So let's say you have a 5-month-old and then you're looking at about a 2-hour wake window to be appropriate. At that point, 2 hours will be close to the mark. It might be a little more, a little longer. You'll have to really watch their cues, but that is the amount of time that they need to build up that pressure without becoming overtired. You're trying to catch them in the sweet spot where there's enough sleep pressure buildup that they're not overtired and that they'll take a good nap and need more than one cycle. This can be very, very difficult to find the sweet spot. As I said, naps take a lot of time to be consistently long. So, rule of thumb, whatever you tweak in your schedule, especially if you're trying to find these appropriate wake windows, try for at least 3 days before changing or making another adjustment. So, you have that 5-month-old, you're only keeping them awake an hour and a half at a time. You're going to go for an hour 45 minutes for 3 full days. And if you don't see any change happening after those 3 days, tweak it again, go for the 2 hours, okay? You'll have to play a little around with this a little bit. And like I said, it's super tricky and it doesn't happen fast, so be patient. Um, some kids, if you're lucky, might change their sleep for naps quick, like a week. That is not the norm. That's very unusual. It does happen, but it's not normal at all. More often than not, 4 to 6 weeks is what I see when they become consistently long and timely. So following these steps and being patient is really going to be needed. Make sure you are managing your expectations for how long this could actually take to work. I truly do use all of these tips when working one-on-one with clients, and they're very effective. And they are very effective, I will say, if nighttime sleep is going well. So a lot of times I work with them on the nighttime sleep during the same process. If nighttime sleep is very segmented with lots of wake ups and lots of crying, chances are you aren't going to have a lot of success with naps. You want to work on both of those and really get the nights going well too. So thank you again for tuning in. I hope that this gives you some insight to why your child is not napping longer than 30 minutes and what you can do for it. Feel free to email me all of your nap and other sleep questions at gmssleep@gmail.com. Thank you.